Must be the reminder. It's 6:30. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for attending tonight. We're here for a city council meeting, and it is Monday, August 3rd, 2020. We'll start this meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom. Here. Roberts. Stroman. Here. Armstrong. Here. Jones.
Here.
Lehman. Here. Solomon. Here. Evans. Here. Drew. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda, we will have the invocation provided by Pastor Craig Moore, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your love and your goodness to us. We ask, God, that you will be in this place today with your presence. I thank you, Lord, for each of these council members and our mayor. Thank you for our police chief and our interim police chief and those who serve us. I ask, God, that you will protect them, guide them, and direct them. I pray, Lord, that you will give wisdom to those that are making decisions. Lord, each of them are gatekeepers for our community. They make crucial decisions. I pray, Lord, that you'll give them the wisdom that they need. I pray, Lord, that you will help them to have the peace of God that passes understanding, to guard their hearts and their minds through Christ Jesus. I pray, Lord, that you will allow them to know your direction, your guidance, and your will for Rapid City. Rapid City is an incredible community, Lord, of people who are caring people who desire, Lord, to see good things. And your word says, woe to those who would call evil good and good evil. So, Lord, we see, Lord, a lot of chaos in our world right now. And so we just ask, God, for our community to be protected. We ask, Lord, for our community to be at peace. We ask for your Holy Spirit to hover over this community. We ask, Lord, for your guidance in our workforce, Lord, upon our business community, Lord, upon the churches of our community, upon, Lord, every aspect of our community. May your Holy Spirit penetrate in every area of this community, Lord, so that we might be a shining example of what a city can be like when it is truly dedicated to you. We thank you and we praise you, Lord, for your intervention in our lives, for your Holy Spirit that truly leads us. Help us to surrender to you, to submit to you, to repent of our sins, and to see good things that come from you, for you are a good God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. This is where council members may adopt the agenda as written or make certain alterations to it. Would there be a motion from council?
Second.
Motion to adopt from Solomon and a second by Jones. All in favor of adoption of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We're going to start off this council meeting with a presentation from our favorite director of the Veterans Honor Banner Project, Bill Casper.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the Student Council. I see we have a couple of new members. I was going to say an old new member, but I better rephrase that and say a new old member. And a little story about Pat. I've known Pat since he was in junior high. He didn't know me, but you were playing football for Bob Collins back in the 70s when I was coaching over at West. That's when we had the lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight divisions, and I'll let it up to you to decide which weight class Pat was playing in at that time. I wanted to talk and just give a little update on the project for some of you that may not know. This got started for us 4 years ago when a golfing friend of mine's wife suggested that, seeing I didn't have anything else to do, why didn't I get this project going? And I took a look at Emporia, Kansas, where it started. And the reason it started there was back before 1954, there was no Veterans Day. There was an Armistice Day, which was celebrated on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. That's when the ceasefire from World War I. But the Congress people from Emporia put a bill before Congress to change Armistice Day to Veterans Day so they could honor all veterans rather than just World War I. And the president at that time happened to be Dwight Eisenhower, was from Kansas, and so the bill went through pretty quickly. So that's why we have Veterans Day. We still celebrate it on the 11th, and the parade usually starts at 11 o'clock in the morning. So that's the cause for the celebration. Our mission statement when we got this together was to try and put banners up on as many light poles in town as we could. And not knowing really what to do with this, I asked who put the banners up in downtown, and I was told that it was Destination Rapid City, and I should talk to Dan Seffner. So I did. I went and visited with Dan and explained what I wanted to do, and he gave us 18 banner hangers that first year. So now I had to go and find people to sponsor a veteran. And because I do so much work with World War II veterans, those first 18 banners that went up were all World War II veterans. And Sue, if you'll show them the size, these are the ones we put up, 18 that first year in 2017. And that's what they look like. The name of the veteran, the branch of the service, their picture, and then each sponsor can put down whatever they want to put down. Medals awarded, if they were in the Navy, maybe ships they sailed on, or if they were in the Air Force, a plane that they were on, and so on. And we got quite a bit of positive response after that first year. And so, of course, we were looking around to see what else we could, where else we could put these banners up. And I noticed on the light poles downtown that there were these brackets sitting there with nothing on them. And I kind of watched them, thinking maybe something would go up for the Sturgis Rally or something like that. Nothing ever did. So I asked about those, and I was directed to Parks and Rec. And so I met with Jeff and Scott Anderson, and they said, yeah, to their knowledge, nobody had ever used them, ever, except they were putting the Christmas decorations, the old ones, up at that time. So I thought, well, could we use those? And so we got permission to use those. So the second year, 2018, we had 84 banners up, and they're a little bit bigger. If Bob will show one, these are 5 foot by 2, and again, about the same as before. We did add Purple Hearts to the people that were awarded Purple Hearts because we are now an official Purple Heart city. Incidentally, both of these two are alive, and both of them are 100 years old. She was a combat nurse, and he was a B-17 top turret gunner and a flight engineer, and they're both 100 years old, and both of them very healthy. Marcella still goes, well, she did until the pandemic, but she would go all over the country lecturing and things like that. She's a real go-getter, lives up in Eagle Butte, and Maury is in assisted living out at Good Samaritan. So we're counting on them to many more years of good health. So that was the second year, 84 banners. We kept getting more positive response, so we went again looking for more hangers, and Park and Rec gave us the banners along the Memorial Walkway and around the north side of the Memorial Pond. So last year we put up 144 banners, and again we put them up for a couple months, and again we got the positive response. So this year we will put up 185 banners. We did secure permission to use light poles on West Main Street from Jackson Boulevard out to the intersection with West Chicago, and also Canyon Lake Drive from the intersection of Mountain View over to 32nd Street, which is Susan Drive. So we're looking to put those up. We've got people on, we've got Civil War veterans, we've got World War I veterans, right up to the present conflict. And some notables that we have, besides these two, we've got a former mayor, up, Art LaCroix. 2 council members, Darla had her dad up last year already, and Richie's putting his dad up this year. So we've got some notables. We've got the highest ranking World War II Marine officer of Chinese descent, Sam Kwang Wong from Deadwood, was up last year, and he'll be up again. You might remember a couple of years ago there was a little contentious debate up there about tearing down some buildings. I think they wanted to put a parking lot in by one of the casinos, and the buildings did get torn down. Well, they were in his family. His family came out with the gold rush around 1877. We have some of those other ones that you might mention or remember, some of you old timers. M.L. Larkin used to own Larkin and Jones. He's up. Bob Hunt, former coach at Tech, has been up. Lou Barella, I don't know if you remember him or not. He sold cars for years for Cadillac Oldsmobile. Lou's had a rather interesting story. He was on a B-17 that was shot down over Germany. 8 of the 10 crew members died. He survived with another one and was taken prisoner over in Poland. And when the Russians started coming across, the Germans pulled him out of the prison camps in the middle of winter. And so they were forced marched into Germany. And Lou likes to say that he weighed 196 pounds when he went in the service. He weighed 92 when he came out. And he got married, and his wife carried him over the threshold. That's what he likes to say. And this year, we will have our first Lakota code talker, Garfield Brown. They had an honor ceremony for him a couple of years ago up at Crazy Horse, and so we will have our first Lakota code talker up this year. And we're looking to get a couple more if we can. A couple other projects that we've been working on. We talked about having a Veterans Alley, similar to Art Alley, and we thought we had a perfect spot right across from the ice rink on the northwest moving and storage building in that alley. But when I talked to the Cotman brothers, apparently they ran afoul with the Historic Society, and I think we might too. So that project is on hold right now. I've also been in contact with the Civic Center with the idea that maybe we would put up some kind of a display of maybe a half a dozen or 8 banners along the concourse and then rotate them every month or so. So the more exposure we can get on these, I think the better we are. This year with the light poles that we got, there were no brackets on them. So we wrote a check to the city for $1,350 so we could get the light poles with brackets on. I give a lot of credit to Scott Anderson. He's really done a terrific job of working with us. So our hanging dates will be the 8th, 9th, and 10th of September, and then the ones the destination puts up will go up on the 1st of October this year. One thing I would like to bring up, and maybe get some feedback from you, as I mentioned, no one has ever used those big brackets. Scott Anderson said to his knowledge, they've never been used by anybody. And we've had a lot of people ask why we can't put the banners up before Memorial Day and leave them up over the summer through Veterans Day. And I think it would be a good addition to the city. When the tourists are walking downtown looking at the presidential statues, they could also look at these banners up and read about some of these veterans that we're honoring. The city attorney's office is supposedly writing a banner code. Have you heard of that? I have. Oh, okay. But I don't know if it's on hold or not, but I think the reason the banner code is probably being written is because of us putting the banners up. And we feel that if nobody else has ever used those hangers, that we be allowed to use them for that period of time from Memorial Day through Veterans Day to honor our veterans. So I'd appreciate any feedback from you folks if you'd like to comment. If not, we'll just take that as a yes and go ahead. So that's all I have. If there are any questions, I left my card with everybody. We have a website with the pictures of all the veterans that have been up. We're on Facebook. We usually get maybe a half a dozen or a dozen likes every day on there. So we're pretty well known throughout the country that way. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. The Veterans Banner Project brings a lot of character to our community, and we appreciate all the hard work you and your crew have put forth in this. So urge you to keep it up. You're talking to the right people out at Parks, by the way.
Yes, yes.
Okay, now into general public comment. This is a time for members of the audience to discuss or express concerns to the council on items not on the agenda. Action will not be taken on these items at this meeting, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. And so in public comment, we have 3 minutes for each speaker. We will watch these lights over here for your indication when your time's about up. They work just like traffic lights. So the first speakers are Kieran Kelly and Grace B., representing the Rapid City Youth Council.
Alrighty, hi everyone. Grace and I are here on behalf of the Environmental Committee of Rapid City's Youth City Council as co-chairs. The Environmental Committee would like to invite you all to a park cleanup and tailgate picnic on August 22nd at Founders Park. We would all be meeting at 11 a.m. in the parking lot. If you would like to, you're welcome to bring food for yourself to eat in the back of your car. That way we're all socially distanced and still getting to spend time with each other. And then afterwards, we would spend time picking up that park, and you would be free to leave whenever you would want. Latecomers are absolutely welcome if you can't make it at that time. Masks are also welcome. Please bring garbage bags and gloves for cleaning up. Grace is going to be giving invitations to the secretary. That way you guys can grab those if you would like to come. Alrighty, thank you guys.
Okay, one more time on the time and place for this so that our listeners can catch it.
So this is going to be the 22nd at Founders Park at 11 a.m.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alrighty, thanks guys.
And the next speaker request form is from Drew W. You might have to help me with your pronunciation, please.
It's pronounced Wishon.
W-I...
S-H-O-N.
Okay, thanks.
I'm here representing the Black Hills Community Action Initiative. I am disgusted at the actions of the RCPD and PCSO last night in relation to the search warrant for Loyalty Morrison. The idea that a local police department would even be in possession of MRAPs and Humvees, much less that they would feel the need to deploy them alongside AR-15s and body armor to serve a search warrant for a 14-year-old child, is nothing short of terrifying. If they really did only want to talk to him, as they said, they do not need to roll in looking ready to raid a house in Fallujah. Furthermore, the RCPD and PCSO should have known that he was not there because his guardian told them so. Nonetheless, they felt the need to tear through this woman's home, block off an entire street, and cause an hours-long disturbance to the neighborhood. Now this woman is likely going to face eviction in the middle of a pandemic simply because the police thought her residence might have been related to a crime. If the police truly wanted to simply talk to him, 2 officers in a car could have done so. If they were out to arrest him, they should have said so. Instead, we saw a display of force widely out of proportion to what was necessary. Is this what our tax dollars are paying for? Military vehicles, body armor, and AR-15s to pursue a 14-year-old? Do these things better protect and serve our community than fixing our crumbling infrastructure, addressing the problems of our unhoused population, or creating youth programs? Why does a city with such a high population of people who are unhoused, underfed, and unable to receive health care have the largest SWAT team in the state, despite not having the largest population? As a resident of the city who cares about my neighbors, I am horrified to see a SWAT team going after a kid who, by all statements from the police, is simply wanted for questioning in relation to a shooting. This is nothing short of a vulgar display of power by a force which is supposed to serve the community, not terrify it into compliance. If the mayor, the city council, and the RCPD don't want to be scolded, in the mayor's words, then they should not engage in behavior which disrupts people's lives, endangers their citizens, and shows a complete disregard for proper force management and conflict de-escalation. I yield my time.
Okay, next speaker is Joey. If you could help me with the spelling of your name, please. D-O-U-B?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I'd like to start my speech with a quote Weapons, not food, not homes, not need, just feed the war, cannibal animal. This is from the song Bulls on Parade by Rage Against the Machine. Sure many of you are familiar with it. In 2019, the Rapid City General Fund was $66,132,849. 23.7% of that budget went to the police department. That is $15,648,879, which was a 0.9% increase. In the same year, the Public Works budget saw a $800,000 slash in their budget, which constituted a negative 6.5% change. The Rapid City Library saw $150,000 removed from their budget, minus 5.1%. Early Childhood Connections, which provides affordable daycare for families all around the Rapid area, saw a minor cut. However, a minor cut of $1,250. However, that was 2.5% of their budget. A clear sign that they are underfunded and need much more money in order to safely provide that same service during a global pandemic. So, to close my statement, I would just ask that the City Council and others in power go against the quote that I read in the beginning. Provide for the food, provide homes, provide need. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mary Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On July 24th, I was at my friend's home mowing her lawn to prevent her from being unable to pay her mortgage during a pandemic due to the threats of fines from the city. I'm sure there's another meeting soon during which we can discuss the insanity of levying fines primarily against elderly citizens and single women to punish them for not mowing their lawns, but that's not today's focus. While I was mowing my friend's lawn, I witnessed an eviction occurring next door. When I approached the Pennington County officer who was sneaking around to the back door, the first thing he said was, "Let me just turn this camera off quick." Then he did so, and then he talked with me. It seems that these body cameras can be turned off fairly easily after all, and with little evidentiary explanation. We'll come back to that during another meeting, I'm sure. During the course of the eviction, I watched a 65-year-old disabled Native American woman and her two granddaughters, aged 6 and 11, be immediately removed from their home. The older child had a small piece of beadwork that she grabbed to bring along, and the younger child clutched only her teddy bear. Had I not been there asking questions, I'm not sure that this family would have received any useful information from the officers. They were told that they could have half an hour sometime later to come back and get clothing. This family was removed from their home on a Friday, leaving them homeless and vulnerable for the weekend. We called VOA, we called Wavy, we called multiple hotels. There is nowhere to go. It has been 11 days. They are not alone in this predicament. I see the face of my own daughter in the face of this 6-year-old child. This child may grow up to hate law enforcement because a sneaky, armed officer showed up at her door and told her to get out of her home and not return. Buying her a skateboard in 10 years does not erase this trauma. There are scores of other children whose families are facing eviction over the course of the next month. Those working in the field say that Rapid City could see over 700 citizens evicted before the end of August. Shelters are full past capacity, churches are non-responsive, evictions are devastating to physical and mental well-being. People who have evictions on their record encounter trouble trying to rent again. Experts across the country warn that we are on the brink of a housing crisis more catastrophic than the collapse that we saw during the 2008 recession. Where is the moratorium? Where is the relief? Why do our shelters receive so little funding when there are millions of city dollars being used to police the community? Why did we just spend over $85,000 to purchase new law enforcement vehicles when we only spend $15,000 more than that annually to fund the Cornerstone Rescue Mission? How can we afford the thousands of dollars per hour that it costs for a fully militarized SWAT team to respond to a non-hostage situation involving a minor's alleged criminal action when we cannot afford to safely house and protect our citizens? Issues like this make it abundantly clear that what matters to the city is active policing, not proactive community building and protection of our vulnerable and impoverished community members. Black Hills Community Action Initiative joins the call of One Rapid City and West River Tenants Union to demand a moratorium and a cancellation of rent during this pandemic. Thank you.
Okay, Mark Smith.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council members. I came out here tonight because I have recently heard a lot of the defunding of our police department. I stand in opposition to the defunding of the Rapid City Police Department. And I'll get into that in just a minute. About 2 months ago, the entire nation was shocked and horrified at the death of George Floyd. And it was an extreme tragedy. But it was a moment where, as the United States, we had a moment to galvanize and ensure accountability in our police force that we are all equal under the eyes of the law, regardless of race, sex, creed, or religion. That moment is rapidly disappearing. The violence that we see spreading across our country is part of the reason why. The riots, the looting, the deaths, destruction of private property and businesses drive people away from the moment that people want to join with you on and what you're calling for. We have to stand against that violence. We have to be opposed to it. The Star Tribune reported that about 400 businesses in Minneapolis were either destroyed or damaged, causing almost $500 million worth of damage. That's appalling and should not occur. We as citizens, as a nation, need to stand opposed and speak out against this violence. I do support our Rapid City Police Department. I may not have thought so when I was 16, 17, getting myself into a world of trouble. I appreciate what they did in making sure I turn myself around. I know that's not the case for every single individual and what interactions they have with the police department, but we have an opportunity where we can have a community conversation about how to go about that. I hear it here tonight. I hear instances where we could have that communication, and we should. But it includes the law enforcement too. They know what they're doing. They're the experts in the field. It's no different than when we have communications with our healthcare field. The healthcare experts are the ones that we go to talk about medical policies and improving quality of care. The police need to be included in the conversation too. As I mentioned, we need to come together as a community, as Americans and as humans. I vowed a couple weeks ago I would not be silent any longer. To me, there was a shocking study done by the Cato Institute that 62% of the American population is afraid to speak their mind in political matters. That is frightening. That is something we should all abhor, and we should be all willing to speak our minds. I stand against the cancel culture that I see pervading against this country right now, because you should be willing to stand on your opinions, on your facts. If you don't like what somebody says, have better speech. That's how we go about changing viewpoints. Have more reasoned speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Harriman.
Mr. Mayor, distinguished council members, I'm here this evening on behalf of the Rapid Creek Watershed Action. We're actually a bipartisan group seeking a federal recreational designation for the Upper Rapid Creek Watershed. I've got 6 points for you of why this is an important issue. Number one, the Upper Rapid Creek Watershed supplies drinking water to Rapid City, Ellsworth Air Force Base, Rapid Valley, Box Elder, and surrounding communities. As of mid-2020, approximately 24% of the land in that watershed has active mining claims on it. That's from Dr. Lilly's charting. Number two, the retail value of the water produced by Rapid City is valued at 72 cents per gallon. Dr. Jerry Wright, former council member, determined that during his PhD study. That means it's $2.9 billion per year is the value of that water. Number three, this is almost 57 times more than the total amount spent in South Dakota by the Wharf Mine near Terry Peak, the only operating large-scale gold mine in the state in 2017. $15.9 million per year is what they actually generated. Rapid City's water will absolutely become worthless if contaminated by mining in the Upper Rapid Creek watershed. The current water treatment process is not designed to remove chemical contaminations, and upgrading it to that level would cost millions of dollars. 5, according to Tourism Economics, Pennington County received 19.8% of all visitor spending in South Dakota in 2018. And according to the South Dakota dashboard, the total gross revenue sales for Pennington County in 2016 was $6.6 billion. The highest grossing sectors were, of course, as we know, retail, trade, and tourism, both which are important to our economy. Why now, in the midst of a pandemic? The NEPA program has recently been weakened by executive order, and the Mystic Ranger District has 9 active exploration projects for active mining claims. The price of gold is rising, which is going to result in more exploration. So my ask is for a unanimous resolution of support for the watershed action and this federal designation. The question that I'm going to leave you with all tonight is, what is the future of and for economic development if the state's second largest municipality does not have safe drinking water? This is a critical issue. We need action today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Teresa Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. People may hear the word watershed and instantly jump to water sports when they think about protecting that recreation. However, there are many other activities that would be impacted by mining in the watershed district. ATV riding in Rochford, hiking the Mickelson Trail, exploring Mystic, Castle Peak, and the other cool areas of the Black Hills, the multitude of mountain and street bicyclists that ride throughout the hills, hunting for deer, cruising down the highway in my motorcycle or in my car, snowmobiling and skiing are just a few. All of these activities and more should not be overlooked in our goals to petition Congress. There are approximately 50,000 visitors that sign in annually at the Pectola Visitor Center. The value of recreation in the Black Hills goes far beyond economic impacts. Of course, water sports such as boating, fishing, diving, and swimming are also on that spectrum, and I personally enjoy as many as I possibly can each year, as I'm sure some of you do as well. My family has been in the Black Hills for 4 generations, and we've become very fond of the variety of activities that are within minutes of our doorstep. It would be disastrous to see them become unavailable for future generations due to large-scale gold mining in the Black Hills. Profits from mining can never outweigh that of access to clean water, nor the ability for people to get outside and enjoy the opportunities around them without fear of contamination. The basis of this project in the economic standpoint have been as stated, and if the numbers alone aren't enough to realize the potential damage to this area, now might be a good time to refer to the Gilt Edge mine in neighboring Lawrence County that was abandoned by its operator in 1991 and has left the site heavily polluted. There are 3 different mining sites up there. The state of South Dakota acquired the property, and within the year it became an EPA Superfund site. The heavy metal contamination is extremely substantial, and we cannot clean up the acidic water fast enough. Could you imagine if the same type of pollution and contamination occurred in the water that all of the citizens in Rapid City and Ellsworth use to drink, cook, and clean with on a daily basis? I sure can't. I personally have an interest in gold mining, but I am more interested in a sustainable future economically and environmentally, and the history of mining in the Black Hills has shown that the costs outweigh the benefits. The arsenic deposits along the Cheyenne River from Homestake Mine are a testament to that. So please pass that resolution to support our cause and to protect the Rapid Creek watershed. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. That takes us through the general public comment period. And now on to non-public hearing items 2 through 33. We'll open public comment on items 2 through 25, which there are no speaker requests. There is a speaker request for item 29, but we'll get to that in just a minute. So that'll take us to consent items 2 through 25. Will there be a motion from council? Okay, hold on. Darla Drew.
I'd like to remove item 22, please.
Okay, any others? Okay, then could we have a motion to approve consent with the exception of item 22? Motion by Lehman, second by Armstrong. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now item 22, under community development items. Approve final fiscal year 19 consolidated annual performance and evaluation report. We'll go to Darla Drew.
I'd like to ask a question or two of Ken Young, if I could, please.
Of course.
Hi, Ken.
Hi.
I really like some of the things I've seen in this report, and I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the affordable housing initiatives that you guys did. I thought that they were really well handled with the funding that you got from the CBGD funds. So if you could talk a little bit about those accomplishments, or if one of your...
Since Michelle Schulke is here, I'm going to let her address that.
Great. Okay, thank you. Michelle, because this is an issue on the minds of many of the people here tonight and others in the community, maybe you could talk a little bit about what we're doing with the affordable housing and low-income housing in Rapid City.
Of course. The Community Investment Committee has really put a priority on funding affordable housing projects. A couple examples is the JB Holdings project on East Watertown. We'll be having 14...
Could you take your mask off so I couldn't understand you a little better? I'm sorry. Okay.
14 new mobile homes, HUD-certified mobile homes. There's renovation of a triplex. We also have 2 more projects coming online for fiscal year 20, in which we will be building a group home for Black Hills Works residents, as well as a new single-family home built by Black Hills Area Habitat for Humanity. And of course, Abbott House is in the midst of building their second group home in Rapid City as well, all funded with CDBG dollars.
I think you did a great job leveraging the money as well. I don't know the exact figures, but it was it 2.8 per dollar that we received. You were able to almost triple that dollar amount in leveraging the money for low-income housing. Do you know of anything coming down from some of the HEALS Act or any of the things? Is someone looking at increasing the CBGD funds that are so needed for cities like ours?
You know, there is going to be a third tranche of CDBG dollars specifically for COVID-related activities. We don't know yet if Rapid City will be receiving those, but the calculation will really be based on need. And so we'll have to see how the pandemic plays out, whether or not we'll be receiving more. As an allocation or as an entitlement community, we were guaranteed to receive some funding in the first tranche, but really it's going to be based on how the pandemic plays out on the third. As far as the HEALS Act, I don't yet know what the details are.
And so a lot of those things don't cover CBGD, I hope I'm getting it right, funds, correct? I mean, I don't expect that to happen in the HEALS.
That's correct. There's a wide variety of programs that are funded, specifically through the CARES Act, things like the Small Business Administration, FEMA, a lot of different programs were given funding. We're just a small portion of that.
Okay, well, I thank you for your answers, and I yield.
Okay. Can we have a motion on item 22, please? Motion to approve Nordstrom, second by Stroman. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us to the end of consent. And now to non-consent items 26 through 33. We'll open public comment on those items. And we do have a speaker request form on item 29, and that is from Jennifer B. Can you tell us how to pronounce your last name, please?
Yes, it's Jennifer Berger.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have applied for an additional curb cut for my residential property. My application was denied by the city's engineering department. The reason for denial was that my property does not meet the minimum requirement for length of road frontage to justify having an additional curb cut. My concern is that my property, I believe, is in a very unique situation. My address is, my home is located at the intersection of Flint and Country Club Drive. My property backs up right into the intersection that's also occupied by another driveway, and traffic coming from 3 directions, 2 of which are coming off of curves. And so when I'm backing out of my driveway, I find it very difficult to see oncoming traffic. And although I understand the city's reasoning for the denial because my property does not meet the standard requirements, I do believe that an additional review of my case is warranted because of the unique factors. I visited with the Public Works Committee last week, and it was determined to move my item to the council without recommendation so that they had a chance to personally drive by and see for themselves what it was like to back out of my driveway. So I hope that they've since had a chance to do that, and I'm just here tonight to ask that you please consider my unique situation and grant me an exception in this circumstance so that I can install a U-shaped driveway on my property. I feel I'll be able to better exit my residence because I'll be able to turn around and exit the property nose first and get a better view of the oncoming traffic. I think it will improve the safety of my neighborhood, both for my direct neighbors, but also for the neighbors that come into my neighborhood off of Sheridan Lake Road, that many of them pass by my home as they come to their residence as well. Thank you for your consideration, and I appreciate you taking the time to review this.
Okay, thank you. And that concludes the public comment period, and we'll go to item number 26. Second reading of Ordinance 6432 regarding Supplemental Appropriation 4 for 2020. Motion approved by Drew and second by Nordstrom. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 27, second reading of Ordinance 6433 regarding Supplemental Appropriation 5 for 2020. Move approval. Motion to approve by Jones, second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 28, first reading of Ordinance 6388, an ordinance to amend provisions of the Rapid City Municipal Code related to the storage and parking of certain vehicles and trailers. Motion to approve by Solomon, second by Lehman. Okay, all in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under Public Works Committee items, item 29, an appeal by Jennifer Berger of 2731 Country Club Drive of an exception request denial to allow 2 driveway approaches for a residential lot with less than 200 feet of frontage. The Planning Commission recommendation was to deny. Public Works recommendation was to send to council without recommendation. And so we'll go now to Bill Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the Public Works Committee meeting, I was the one that looked at the maps and thought perhaps this does try and rectify a problem that was created before we had our current zoning practices and requirements concerning certain curb cuts and everything. Well, I did go out and check out the property the last couple days, and I was expecting to say, well, I was completely right in my intuition that this is something that needs to happen because it's a safety deal. I'll be honest with you, and I wouldn't say it unless I was telling the truth. I didn't find it to be exactly the way it looked on the satellite shot or on the map. And the intersection, in fact, I drove past it once. I didn't even catch it because I didn't see the problem I thought looked so serious on the map. Now, that being said, the area on the map looks far bigger, more spacious, and seemingly able to accommodate this extra curb cut. In reality, when I get there, it seems that's a very congested. The homes are closer together than I had remembered, and it's kind of like Mount Rushmore. When you're a kid and you go there, it's huge, and then as you get older, it's smaller. Well, when I used to go over there in high school, it seemed like those houses were spread out. Now, not so much. So I'm looking at this. There is a curb cut with a double U turnaround in the front yard across the street. The difference is that one is a much narrower driveway than Ms. Berger has. I think hers looks some 20-odd feet wide. The one across the street is probably only 12 or so. And so it doesn't impact their front yard as much. Now, all that being said, be honest with you, I don't know why anybody would want to take their entire front yard and turn it into this turnaround. I don't think it's going to really solve much of the safety issue, because I don't think it's as critical as I initially thought looking at the map. In this case, I'll probably go ahead to let her have the exception anyhow, because frankly, it's kind of a hot mess in that corner anyhow. I don't know if it's going to impact it one way or the other, visually or aesthetically. I would make sure that if she's going to do this, she checks with her neighbors to make sure that they're not totally opposed to it, because frankly, I see it as a way to devalue the properties. I think it's going to be unattractive to have that in the front yard, but I'm probably going to let her have the exception, because frankly, we're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. These were requirements that we had set up in the 70s, or since the house was built in 1972. So again, she's got a round peg, it's a square hole. We're trying to make it fit into our current requirements, and I don't see that it does. But I hope that she is willing to, if we do approve this, check with their neighbors, see what their idea is, because frankly, all that concrete in somebody's front yard to me is not good for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I direct a question to our Public Works Director, please?
Yes, please.
Mr. Tech, can you help us understand why a circular driveway with an additional curb cut in this situation is not recommended?
There's a number of reasons that access points are limited in residential areas. The primary reason is the more access points you have, the more conflict points you have with traffic. In a residential area, people expect people to pull out of their driveways. But the more you add, the more potential there is for someone pulling out and running into somebody. The second reason is on-street parking. Certainly, the more approaches you add, you limit the ability for people to park on-street. Certainly comes into play during holidays or special events that your neighbors may have. You're basically eliminating on-street parking by having multiple accesses to a property. And then finally, drainage. Certainly curb cuts don't convey stormwater as well as standard curb and gutter, so anytime that you have an approach, it's not the best flow condition for stormwater that's flowing down the street. Those are the primary reasons.
Does the width of the curb cut matter on the drainage?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. And can I direct a question to Ms. Berger?
Yes,
would you
she
mind?
would like to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Tech, for your answer. Ms. Berger, so one of the points you talked about was conflict points. Can you describe in a, let's say, in the rush of morning situation, what the traffic is like there, so we get a better understanding?
Sure. My driveway backs up, I guess it's considered a T intersection. Mm-hmm. So Country Club kind of goes like this, and Flint goes straight. You know, busy times of day, we have traffic coming and going. Like I said, I'm about a block off of Sheridan Lake Road, maybe 2 blocks off. It's a main inlet into my neighborhood, back near Meadowbrook Elementary School. Kids are getting dropped off at school. People are driving in and out to go to work. For me, from my perspective, you know, my neighbors have trees, large mailboxes. There's, you know, some dips in the road and dips in the landscaping that make it difficult to see from all directions. When I'm backing up, it's not the same as coming out forward facing where you can easily glance at those. You know, I'm turning this way, trying to see this way, and then I've also got another vehicle coming behind me. There haven't been any accidents reported at that intersection, but there have been a lot of near misses. I find it very challenging.
Okay, and that's helpful. I'm prone to grant you the exception. My only concern is the drainage issue, and I didn't know if there's a way to do curb cuts that at least help a little bit with the drainage or not. But and that's I am very familiar with your neighborhood and understand how that can be a little bit funky. So sometimes we're trying to relieve any safety issues, but also we have a safety issue and that you're trying to resolve for yourself at least. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Another question for Ms. Berger, if I may?
Yes.
Thank you. Is it possible to close off the current curb cut and driveway you have and then open another one so you wouldn't have to be backing out into the area of concern, and your new curb cut would be where you're wanting to curl around? Does that make sense? So the net would be no more or less curb cut. You would just be coming in and out at what you've defined as a safer place. So is that a possibility?
Well, it would lead to a driveway basically cutting diagonally across my property without, easy access to my driveway, to my garage. I guess that's the reason that I'm wanting to make the U-shaped, is that the current driveway lines up with my garage. I think that would probably be quite a bit of a challenge to exit my property that way.
It would be unusual, but the curve, like Mr. Evans was saying, is going to create a tremendous amount of concrete and things through your yard. So if the goal is to back out into a safer spot on the street and not be in violation of the amount of curb cut, it was just something to consider. If you don't see it as feasible, then that's certainly your decision. I just wanted to ask the question about if you've given that any thought.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Darla Drew.
Thank you. My question is also for Jennifer Berger, please. So did you talk with any landscapers or any people about maybe other types of solutions for your driveway? There could be some creative ways for you to maybe have an L shape and then pull out your garage into that and then pull out.
Right.
And then you wouldn't have the two.
Mr. Nordstrom posed that question to me also at the Public Works Committee. I have not specifically looked into that, although I have considered that as another option if I'm not able to get the exception. My property is kind of a unique piece, just in that it's a pie shape, and so where my driveway is there, I'm not sure if I have enough space between my current driveway and the property line to put in the U-shape, or to put in an L-shape there.
Yeah.
But it definitely would be something to consider if the council is not able to grant my exception.
And so when you get into your driveway, then you go into garage?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any children involved here when you're getting in and out? Okay. All right, well, that gives me something to think about, but I think you have some options. I just don't know if I can support this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the exception.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Armstrong, second by Lehman. All in favor of approving the exception, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Jones.
No.
Neiman. Solomon. Evans. Drew. Nordstrom. Stroman. Armstrong. Motion passes 6-2.
Okay. All right, thank you. Now on to community development items. Item 30, a request by Fiscal Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for a construction company for care. I want to say it, Kykart? Okay. Kykart Construction Company LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 6A and 6B of Block 29 of Gemstone subdivision, generally described as being located at 507 and 509 Topaz Lane. And the recommendation from committee was to approve with stipulations.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion from Armstrong to approve. Is that with stipulations?
Approved with stipulations.
Okay, and a second, Jason Solomon. All right, all in favor of approving with stipulations, item 30, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion. No from Stroman? Okay. Passes with one no. Item 31, a request by Renner Associates LLC for Tyler Shad for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1 through 4 and 5A and 5B of Beckman subdivision, generally described as being located north of the eastern terminus of Beckman Drive, and committee recommendation was to approve with stipulations. Okay, we have a motion to that effect by Drew and a second by Nordstrom. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to item 32 under mayor's items. This is a presentation from the Human Relations Commission Task Force, and we would turn it over to the task force.
We have a PowerPoint. We have a PowerPoint. I don't know where to. There we go.
Coming up. It's coming up.
There we go. Okay. And I'm not sure I know just the arrows. Is that what? Well, I'll figure it out.
Maybe Jim will bring you.
Oh, the space bar. Okay, great. Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for inviting us to come and share this with the council. It's an honor and a privilege to be able to meet with you tonight and to share the findings that we came up with after almost a year of work on the Human Relations Commission Task Force. My name is Karen Mortimer, and I am part of that task force. I'd like to introduce the task force. A number of some of the task force members and some of the members from the Minnelusahan-Okolokichiape ambassadors will be sharing the plan with you tonight. I believe you have the plan. You've had a chance to read it, but the mayor thought it might be helpful for us to share a little bit of this work with you. So tonight we have almost all of the task force members. One of them just had a knee surgery, so she can't be here. But Tara Huska, I think Tara's here. Want to raise your hand? Perfect. So if you have questions as we go along, you certainly can address it to any of us. Denise Maher, who is not here, had surgery on her knee, but wishes she could be here and has been a wonderful part of the team. Tony Rhodes, Tony, back here. Tony Rhodes is here tonight, and Amy Sazu. We want to particularly thank Jessica Rogers from the City Attorney's Office, who's been an amazing facilitator for us and keeping us together and on track, as well as Kelsey Sakos. Both of them have just been helpful beyond measure. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk a little bit about why this task force was put together, the recommendations and the goals. We'll move on to talk. We have and Tony Rose is going to take that piece for us. The second part will be a little bit about Minnelusahan-Okolokichiape ambassadors, because we're talking about kind of a merger here. We want you to know a little bit more about that. So Marnie Herman will be talking about that. Marnie, want to raise your hand so everybody can see? Okay, Marnie. We'll follow that with, let me just check here again. Amy Sazu is going to talk about the two functions that we've identified for the new Human Relations Task Force. And we'll finish with Bill May. Bill, want to Bill's back there in the corner. Bill and Marnie are both part of MOA, and Bill is going to talk a little bit about the structure. At the end, we'll ask for questions, and this sounds like a big presentation. We're going to summarize it. We know you have the document, but we thought we'd offer a few thoughts for you to think about, and we certainly will welcome questions and comments after. I'll stay up here and kind of move through make sure the slides move the way they're supposed to. People know what they're going to talk about. So let's start with Tony. Tony, you want to come up? He's here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. The purpose of the Human Relations Task Force, and that will be the last time I use that phrase, so I'll call it the HRC, was stipulated in the application and in the initial meeting with Mayor Allender. We were charged with the responsibility of reviewing the history of the HRC and making a determination as to how the city should move forward with the entity, if at all. Our recommendation is that the entity currently known as the HRC needed to be revised so that it was a more effective tool for the community as a whole, not just devising eyewash program to satisfy a federal checkbox. The criteria under which the HRC was formed came from the United States Department of Justice's Community Relations Service and pretty much followed the document Guidelines for Effective Human Relations Commissions. The document, under the heading Establishing a Human Relations Commission, identified 7 shoulds, which our ordinance implemented, as did many municipalities across the nation. The overall tone was authoritative and punitive. The authority and power municipal HRCs wielded were used in other locales to extract punishment on individuals and businesses across the nation under the guise of human rights violations, not what we felt we needed in our community. Our discussions throughout the community revealed that there were long-held opinions about our city's ability and concern for the rights and concerns of all individuals. We realized that the punitive nature of the entity led many to believe that as a city operation, it would do no good to complain or even question the things that were going on day to day. Enter the organization MOA, because I can't say that second word. This organization has been dealing with day-to-day hurts and pains of our Native community. Collecting data and implementing various strategies, they became a valuable bridge builder in Rapid City. Little had been done to accumulate data on what was being addressed, how, and with what type of outcome. Realizing that complaints were not being brought to the surface, much less being resolved, we felt the new entity should have a mediation-focused mission with strong emphasis on community engagement. The new entity would create an inclusive alliance between the city, the community, and the community's businesses. It would promote and ensure civil discourse, human rights, and resource development in Rapid City. It would use education and engagement as tools to benefit the entire community. It would nurture a community culture valuing equity, respect, and understanding, and it would promote all voices being heard on issues where discord manifests. Unknown to us during our deliberations, the Department of Justice's Community Relations Service stepped back from the punitive model and now employs a model which mirrors our recommendation. To quote the latest information on the Department of Justice's website, Community Relations Services provides facilitation, mediation, training, and consultation services that improve communities' abilities to problem solve and build capacity to prevent and respond to conflict, tension, and hate crimes based on race, color, national origin, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, and disability. CRS provides programs designed to strengthen community and law enforcement partnerships, as well as school-based programs that improve problem solving between students. The goals of all CRS programs are to help parties in conflict learn about different perspectives, share information about resources and best practices, and support communities as they identify and implement solutions. This is what we came up with. This is what our recommendation is. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council, and thank you so much for the time tonight. I'll just speak extemporaneously about Minaloosahan, Okili-Kichiapi ambassadors, which we refer to as MOA. MOA started with an educational bus trip that 50-plus members of our community participated in. The purpose of the bus trip was multifold, multifaceted, but the number one objective of that trip was to create relationships. We, almost 50 people from around Rapid City, connected to business, connected to public education, connected to the largest institutions in Rapid City, such as Monument Health, the school district, et cetera, came together, and we were joined by members of the larger community, including a lot of our Lakota neighbors and our Native friends. And the goal was to, again, build relationships. Karen Mortimer identified a need in our community to, well, she discovered a void, let's say. She discovered a void, that there were not enough good relationships, solid friendships and understanding between the Native and the non-Native community. So come together, have a bus trip, learned an enormous amount about the history of Western South Dakota, particularly from the Native American perspective. And in the course of learning about that and being on a bus, actually for a week, and getting to know people who normally we may not have crossed paths with in our daily lives, really built an amazing community, one that's I'm not articulating well. It's hard to explain, but the result of that is this solid core of concerned, active, involved citizens who know more about what makes this community and this region what it is today. All of the stories, all of the history have come together, and we, because of the relationships that we formed and the idea that we were trying to create friendships and create understanding, the outcome is that we have created a format for civil discourse. We have created the opportunity to talk about difficult history, difficult situations that occur today, primarily around race relations. We can have those conversations civilly and with open minds and open hearts, and we think that that is probably our most valuable asset, are the relationships that have been created. In addition to that, we have acted, I'll say, as kind of a magnet for other people in the community who were not with us on the bus in 2015, but who would have been had there been extra seats. They have joined us attending meetings, participating in events that we're involved with, and just saying, how can I be a part of this? How can I make new friends? How can I improve my understanding of our community and what makes it our community in all of its imperfections and in all of its glories? We think that there's so much value in the work that's been done and in the relationships that have been created, and the foundation, again, of understanding, education, and civil discourse to make it easier to stand shoulder to shoulder with every neighbor who we have in our community and work towards making us an even better community. We wanted to find a way to continue that work, that relationship building, and the idea, not to mention some of the project work that's been ongoing. To do that takes structure. We think it takes endorsement from the city. It takes money, of course, and within that framework, we need a framework and some structure that outlasts all of us here. Our abilities to participate actively that goes long after we're not here anymore, even physically here. This should be an ongoing commitment that the city makes. We truly believe that the work has been valuable. In subsequent slides, you'll see pictures of people, and those are folks that are, first slide, yeah. I should have started out with Beam, but I didn't, sorry. That's the problem with extemporaneous speeches. To sum up, really, when we say what's our mission is an acronym called BEAM. We are dedicated to bridging cultures, educating ourselves and others, advocating for others and for ideas, and modeling respectful behaviors. That really sums it up. I think that we are true to that. I think that everyone who's a part of MOA snaps in to that mission statement wholeheartedly and consistently. And here's our picture. This is a few of us who are available for that picture that day, but there are dozens and dozens more.
Thanks, Marty. I'm just going to read this quote because it leads right into one of the functions of MOA, and that is the community building. In community building, it's like planting trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit. And sometimes you can't see the data, although we've actually been able to see some of the data, but we definitely have been planting trees. Amy.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you guys for the time this evening to talk about our recommendations. I was previously involved with MOA and joined the HRC task force with the idea of learning about the previous task force and then figuring out how it serves or didn't serve our community and whether or not we needed it. I came into that process with an open mind and was happy to learn alongside my fellows here. And I just want to share the fact that this bridge, this partnership, came about completely organically through conversation from people with different backgrounds, different perspectives, we were a completely diverse group, and I do want to acknowledge the mayor's appointment. And when we got together in the room the first time, we were looking at each other like, what the heck are we gonna do here? And but it was through civil discourse, it was through honest sharing of opinions, of backgrounds, it was listening to each other and sharing those opinions about what we think our community needed that brought us to this here today. And so we came down to realizing that there's two major functions that the HRC needs, or that Rapid City needs. The first one alludes to the MOA model of BEAM. We were talking about we needed education, we needed advocacy, we needed a place for people to come to be heard. We needed to bring diverse backgrounds and various stakeholders from the community in to hear these concerns or hear complaints. And that comes to the second function. And so primarily, that's what we learned, was that the HRC was really just a place to bring complaints. And the old model just decided if this complaint, broke a law, and then it would move forward. And if it didn't, then it was like, oh, okay, sorry that we don't, can't help you with that. And then it just kind of sat to the side. And that really created this feeling of being unheard, or that people's complaints weren't serious enough, they didn't matter. It left out people that didn't fit that model of either, the adjudication model that was the HRC used before. So we really rethought the complaint process and decided that it needed to be a place where people came to be heard, and that no matter what their complaint was, that they would come to this group of people that had a vested interest in hearing their complaint and deciding what best course was, to decide a best course to move forward. And that's where we came up with the complaint process. So we like the idea of coming to be heard. If it was something that could be handled through mediation or through conversation, that we would be able to handle that and facilitate that. And if it was something that moved beyond that we could help somebody through that process. and not just leave them on their own vices to do it themselves and figure it out, basically, but that we would help them through that process. Tony kind of talked about this. We decided who it would serve. All citizens of Rapid City, the business community, the education community, city and county government, that it should serve everybody and that it would be a place for everybody to come and have their complaints heard. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill May, and I'm a member of the MOA. And I'd like to start with a quote as well, which is from no greater of a change agent than Lyndon Baines Johnson, which was, if we are to live together in peace, we must come to know each other better. And that is really what we're striving to do with this process and this reorganization of a community relations group who can do both community building and improvement of race relations actively, and who can also act as a facilitator and a mediator when disputes arise, short of adjudication, which is what the HRC was really doing and not very effectively, to be totally candid. So the new structure is going to be a 9-member commission that's going to be selected by the mayor. It's going to have direction and control from the mayoral level and the city council level, but it's also going to include a component of the MOA ambassadors who've also worked very diligently to try to improve things in our community. And the way that that seems to have worked is to build relationships among whites and natives, as simple as that sounds, Native American folks, and to start to develop an understanding of who they are, and they develop an understanding of who we are, so that we can make our community better. And the investment that we're talking about here, dollars and cents investment, is a very extremely modest one, almost under the radar. But what it seeks to accomplish and do is dramatic, which is help deal with issues that have troubled us for years and years, and to have a mechanism so that our community stays together, doesn't fall apart. So what we want is, and ask is for the restructuring, but then to allow for a one-paid position. A staff member, this work, Karen has done this work on her own largely. It's taken all of us to be there too as well, but she's not been paid all the time, and it takes a person with a vision and a strategy and a commitment to make it into a reality. So we need a staff member, we need an executive director. And then the second ask is for some space, so that we can have the space. And those are the things that we're asking. But we also believe that this work isn't limited to what the city can do for us. It has to be a team effort, so we want to bring in private entities and private organizations, Elevate Rapid City, the Rapid City Visitors Administration or Commission, whatever the heck it's called. We want to bring those in because this is work that is going to require everyone to do. And so we want to do that, and we hope we have your support to get it done. Thanks.
That really concludes our remarks. We know that we didn't go into much detail. We were only given a short period of time. We probably even went over. I'm sorry. But there's so much richness in this discussion, and we've been working on it for a long time, and so we will really be interested in hearing your questions, comments tonight or in the future as you're considering this concept. We think that this plan is very inclusive. We think it's resourceful. We think it's collaborative. One thing we didn't actually mention is that not only would we have a commission and an employee, but we would pull together an advisory council. There's so many good groups in Rapid City who are doing similar kinds of things. So to unsilo people, bring them together, create resources that the city and the citizens of Rapid City can use. We're excited about this concept. We think it's a win-win. And the idea of MOA's work is just bringing capacity that's already been created. There's lots of other work in the community as well, but we bring that and give it to the city as a partner. So I guess I'd like to turn it over to you for questions and comments. I had one everybody was giving some quotes. I have one. Had many that I was going to share tonight, but I think that we talk about when we want change, and this is a time now more than ever. I mean, is it the time? No, it's probably a time for change. We've got a lot of things going on in our world and in our community, and we want change. We want things to move. And something that we've always said in our work is that change happens at the speed of trust. So this is building trust, trying to build trust one relationship at a time. And so I'll turn it over to you with questions, comments. Any of the speakers that were here, also Tara Huska, who's also in the room from the task force. So,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have a few people that would like to address the MOA group or the task force, or both. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first of all, I'd like to move to acknowledge the presentation, if I can get a second, and retain the floor.
Second by Armstrong. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. You've taken a committee that was kind of just basic, and you've turned it into something remarkable. I really like the private-public partnership on this. That is outstanding, and I have to say that you have an all-star team working on this, so kudos to all of you for the work that you've done. You're tremendous people, well-rounded, representing different aspects of the city. And Karen, knowing you well, you're all about building bridges, and I think that we need that more than ever. This is a time that we really need to come together as a community. We divide so much over, differing opinions, and we all have them. No doubt about it. We have different backgrounds, different thoughts and opinions about things. But it'd be awesome if we could focus on what unites us and the common things that unite us. And I like the aspect that this is more than a formal process for complaints, although that is a critical function of this. But it is beyond that, and it's proactive rather than just reactive. That's a strong component to this. I do have a couple of questions. One for you, Mr. Mayor. Are you going to include this salary in your 2021 budget preparation or presentation? Excuse me.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And two, I didn't see anywhere. Maybe Joel knows this. Do we have an idea what the terms will be for commissioners? So we have a 9-person commission. How often does that kind of renew? Have we thought through that at all?
Jess just held up 3 fingers, so I think that means 3
Jess
months.
says 3 fingers?
3 years.
Well, it's usually better than the 1 finger I get, but that's okay. And I think that's important too, because you don't want a lifelong appointment where you've locked in this all-powerful 9-person committee, and if let's say they don't represent the entire community, and you're kind of stuck with them until you can make some changes. So I think it's really important how we bring people on, how we allow people to renew their term, I would say. And I really like the idea that culture fit is big. So those were my 2 kind of big questions. Otherwise, I'd just say thank you for your, building bridges. If you actually want to see change come, doing the hard work and working with folks from the city and from other parts of the community and coming together and seeing what can we do together, despite all of our differences, what can we do together? I think that's how you get things done. We can yell at each other, or we can visit with each other, find out what we have in common. Can we agree on that? And it sounds like that's what this group has done. And so just really commend you for your work. Thank you for your dedication, Karen. This is years and years of work. Thank you. You've planted these seeds a long time ago. And very grateful for you, and hopefully that this will continue to get better and better over the years. Thank you. I yield.
Laura Armstrong.
Jason, I want to just quickly respond because there might be some other questions. The detail in terms of some of the specifics, the task force specifically decided to wait on some of that to let the commissioners, when they're appointed, make those decisions. So I think there's a lot to learn, a lot to work with council on, and the mayor.
And to add on to that, there's a draft memorandum of understanding that will be brought forward if the council approves the appropriation for it. Okay, Laura Armstrong.
Can I get my time back?
Yes.
Thank you. There we go. Okay. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody personally: Tara Huska, Denise Maher, Karen Mortimer, Tony Rhodes, Amy Sazu, Jessica Rogers, and Kelsey Sakos, as well as my fellow MOAers as well. I am a proud MOA ambassador. So thank you for the work that you have put forward. They have been working on this for a year. So I'm very proud of the work that they've done and how much they've brought forth in that time. They were very, very productive. When I first came on council 3 years ago, I was assigned to the Human Relations Commission, and I was elated until I went to the first meeting and nothing got done. And then I went to the second meeting and nothing got done. And by October, I went to the mayor and I said, what is going on with the HRC? These people seem nice, but they don't do anything. And the mayor at that time said something, I'm summarizing, something like, well, do you think it has value? And without even thinking, I just said, yes, of course, the concept has value, but they don't do anything. They meet for 2 hours every month. What do they get done? And I think that got the mayor thinking about it, and I want to commend the mayor for putting this task force together, because this easily could have fallen to the wayside, and it didn't. So thank you for not letting it do that. Racial relations have been in the news, but this work has been going on before that, and I think it is so important to recognize that we are not being reactive. This task force and their recommendations are not just some sort of knee-jerk reaction what has been going on nationally. They have been doing this work since 2014, and I love the fact that they are being proactive. And I look forward to seeing what the details are and how this comes forth, because I am a staunch supporter of this. This is something that our city needs. We all need to be speaking with one another. As Mr. Solomon had said, we need things that are going to unite us, and something like this will definitely be a couple steps forward. So a heartfelt thank you to everybody involved with this, and I look forward to seeing this progress. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I just want to make a couple of comments as well. I was also on the Human Relations Commission for a couple of years and found it to be ineffective as well. But the problem I think that we had was that we weren't in the communities. We were in a small room somewhere upstairs, and we met with each other. And, complaints would come forward, but the people, it happens so very rarely. I think on the time that I sat on the commission, there were maybe 3 complaints. First of all, I think there was no awareness in the community that there was some place to go that was a quasi-judicial kind of body that would look at this material that they'd bring forward, or they just didn't think they'd be heard, so they just didn't come. And a lot of the meetings were spent in just complete tedium. And we did have a couple lawyers, a judge. We had 2 American Indian members that were there. But I don't think we really accomplished anything because nobody would really get to the nitty-gritty. And that's the uncomfortableness. That's not the unitedness that we're speaking of here with joy. It's the discontent. And that's the uncomfortable conversations we have to have. Because Lakota is not a color, it's a culture They're totally different in a lot of ways. Excuse me, I don't mean to say they, sorry. But the people that I've worked with, and I've worked a lot in Indian country, they have close families, good intentions, and their schools are wonderful. They try to include white people when they can, when we'll allow ourselves to actually look at what the situation is like. So I think that we have to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations coming up very soon. And that will help us get to that united place. But we can't get there until we get through the bad stuff. And there's some bad stuff out there. And young people come here, I see them. They'd like to see some changes. Changes slow and hard, and I think you've seen it. And I love the way that you continue to show up. Because that's the only way anything gets done. It's by the people that show up. So I think there was a lot of misunderstandings with the HRC as it initially was done. I think this is a really great path for us to be on. Karen, thank you for your work and the people on your committee. It's hard work, and it takes a long time to think through all these things that you guys have done with this plan. Thank you for that. That is a year's worth of work, and when I found out it was taking you a year, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, these people are really digging into this. And I know that you've also spent a lot of time in Indian country and with the people, and I'm hoping that we can really achieve what these goals are set out for us. Because, like I said earlier, it's not going to be easy, some of it won't be pleasant, and we have to keep coming back to that table and showing up, and then we get to the united part. It's you know, when you're talking race relations and the complexities of white and Native relations in western South Dakota, it's a big, big question, and there's a lot of work to do. And just coming together is really a good thing for the most part. And I have a lot of friends that have absolutely no connection to the Indian country. They've never been to the reservation, you know, and geez, it wouldn't take that much for us to just try a little bit harder as Rapid Cityans to kind of know this wonderful culture that awaits us with the Lakota people. And I've just got to encourage everyone, whether you're on this committee or just listening just now, reach out a bit more. Open yourselves up, expand a little bit, because that's what we're going to need from everybody if we're going to get where we're going, not just this commission. Thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. At the beginning of the presentation, one of the things that was said was the commission was looking at itself to see if it should even still exist. When in government does government ever say, do we still need to exist? They find ways to keep themselves. It's like once something is created, it's perpetual, whether it's needed or not. And the courage for this group to look themselves in the mirror and ask that question is amazing and powerful, and it underscores the need to do exactly what they're doing. And I'm excited sitting here hearing what was presented to us tonight. Cities, governments, a lot of organizations like ours and others are taking a whooping nowadays for not doing things, for not taking care of people, for not reaching out. And the first word of this is human, and that's who we are and what we are. The more we relate to each other, we can accomplish anything. We have to be willing to talk to each other. We have to be willing to listen to each other. We have to be willing to be realistic about what we can accomplish. And hearing the presentation and reading it is just absolutely exciting. Karen, you and I go back a little ways and have worked on a lot of projects together. And one thing I've learned is that if Karen Mortimer is involved, it's going to be worth doing. And I learned that the hard way sometimes and the easy way sometimes in all the projects that we worked on. So my amount of respect for you is very large. So thank you. And to the other people that are working on this, it's awesome. It's difficult. It's hard stuff because you've got to drop your surroundings and you've got to drop your shell and be willing to say we have to do things better. So If we remember the human in human relations, any door that we want to open, we can open. To the people who come here every week, this is my 3rd city council meeting, and that have been here each week and speak and say what's on their mind, I have a lot of respect for what you're doing. I may not agree, and you may not agree with me, but I respect a lot of the things that you're doing. We have to respect each other. Civil discourse is almost unheard of anymore. It's like an oxymoron, jumbo shrimp. We have to be able to get back to that and embrace that and celebrate it and have those conversations and get fired up. And that's okay to do, but it doesn't mean we have to hurt each other along the way. Doesn't mean we bust windows. Doesn't mean we burn buildings down. Human, which is our common denominator. So thank you, Karen, Amy, and I apologize for not remembering everyone else's names. But thank you for what you're doing. Don't give up. Stay strong. Push the plow, because this is vital work, and I really, really thank you for what you're doing. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
I also want to thank Karen and her whole committee. Karen and I also go way back, 40-odd years, and everything she touches seems to turn to gold. So thank you very much for heading this up. I have been bellyaching since I've been on the council about how this town keeps forgetting what its assets are, and whether it's the great watershed or, just the scenery, or in this case, so often involving our Lakota culture and everything, and how it's not championed and seen as the great asset it is. And that's probably the main focus of the human relations problems we have in this town, is misunderstanding between the Lakota culture and others. And so I see us being at a tipping point right now where there can be a huge paradigm shift in the way this is all experienced for people, not only as residents here, but the visitors and the tourists we bring in. I envision a time when, rather than we're taking people downtown and people aren't saying, well, I hope we don't run into any panhandlers or whatnot, but instead we're hoping to encounter people to engage with and experience and share stories with. And I remember some of those taking place at Mount Rushmore, and speaking with, was it Ben Black Elk that was up there for so many years, and thinking how cool that was. Now I would take people and get back to the days where more of that happens, rather than a town where Native people are afraid to be downtown, but to look forward to the time when they can be down there because there's a chance to share what they have with the people. So I think we have a city council here that is really quite visionary, I think, and looking forward to helping that go over the tipping point and maybe have that paradigm shift happen. And so thank you for your efforts, and hopefully the next year or two we can really work to get things going on things that will make that go. So thank you, Karen.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of comments is that I'm glad to see the MOA be involved with this HRC group. Sorry, I throw a lot of acronyms around. So I came out of that world where we do a lot of acronyms. And the first acronym I want to throw at you is what stuck in my mind is that's bringing up from the HRC is public-private partnerships, the P3s. So I see this group as being enabling raising the bar. I feel very confident that this will happen. You mentioned also civil discourse. To me, again, that's another part of raising the bar to professionalism, being able to agree to disagree and not be vitriolic about it. The last part is I'm going to need a little bit more information, and this will probably come from the mayor and maybe some other folks will be involved in it. It is the position of the director. What is that? What is that person going to be doing? And then the last part of that involvement with the director is what is the return on investment for that? I don't need an answer right now, but it's just some of the things that I'd like to take a look at. Thank you, Mayor. Yield.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for being here tonight, for presenting, and for all the hard work. and there was a bit of a pushing of the pause button during the early stages of the pandemic, but this group has worked very well together. The old Human Relations Commission was really born out of conflict. And in the 1970s, there was a great amount of conflict between Indians and whites. And this city had a fairly robust Human Relations Commission. There were lots of reports written. There were investigations conducted. It was a certain type of an entity that was needed at the time. At some point, it fell by the wayside, and it was brought back sometime in the early 2000s. But I think it was brought back kind of on the false promise of being what it used to be to those individuals back in the 70s. The false promise to bring justice, and there was subpoena power and all of these things. It was at a board that was meant to be a quasi court trial setup. And I would say it was politicized when it was reborn in the early 2000s. Ultimately, as some folks here have mentioned, it really had become a mess, but that was no fault of the individuals that were on it. It was one of those committees where we would find good, upstanding, well-meaning people in the community and send them to that committee until they had none of that left in them. It was really the example of a poor, untimely setup. It was not carefully or thoughtfully put together. So, year and some ago, I stopped calling these meetings. I told everyone to take a break in October of, I think, 2018. No one noticed until summer of 2019. And so that's what it had become. It had become something that no one noticed anymore. So kind of confirmed my suspicions. So I thought of, we sent out a call for applications to be on this task force. We got a variety of individuals. I tried to pick people that were, by and large, different from each other, from different cross sections of the community. And they got together and met, and I think my instructions to them were something along the lines of, figure it out and let me know what you think. I mean, I didn't give them a predestined conclusion. I didn't tell them what I wanted it to be when they were done. Because truly, I was afraid that we had only known one way of having a Human Relations Commission, and it was destined to be a failure forever. So several months later, they called me to a meeting and said they had some preliminary conclusions, and they were kind of bracing me for them. They were kind of sheepishly preparing me, and worried about what I might say. And I guess I have to be honest and admit that I assumed that they were going to say, we think that we should just disband and have a web page telling people where to take their issues. But instead, this group of very diverse individuals sat down and shared with me their collective intelligence and their work on this issue. That was a very difficult issue at a very difficult time in sometimes a very difficult community. And it was brilliant because I'd like to say it exceeded my expectations, but I didn't have any expectations. So it was just a breath of fresh air to hear all of these folks. And by the way, I didn't do any screening for these individuals to see what religion they were or what political party they belonged to, but we came to learn throughout this that about half of these individuals were, I think you put them solidly in the conservative category, some solidly in the liberal category, and some maybe in the other category. But they were unique and without pressure to be like one another. It was a good group. So they put together what we have here in front of us. So I've been very pleased, very surprised initially, but very pleased at the result. And we're going to work with this group, continue to work with this group to cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure that the council in 2 weeks from today gets an adequate explanation of how we intend to provide for this group to operate in the most effective and efficient manner. So my thanks to all of you for being part of that, and my thanks to the council for being patient, because it has been a long time. It's been a year. Karen?
One quick footnote. Amy reminded me of something that's really important to share, I think. And I wanted to note that the 5 of us on the task force sat equally together. Jessica was our leader, and we really did work extremely well together. It's been a real honor and a privilege. But one thing that we wanted to share that we don't have an answer for it yet, but we think the name should be changed. We don't think it should be the Human Relations Task Force, because that holds some pretty bad history, particularly in Rapid City. I won't go into the details on that tonight, but it has some bad connotations. And so we'd like to ask if we could, recommend that there be a name change. Marnie came up with a good starter, the Community Relationship Council or Commission. So we've got some things to work on, but we wanted to say that we'd like to do that. And again, our sincere thanks and my sincere thanks to all of the people who agreed to speak tonight. And Tara, thanks you for being here as well.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. There's no action needed on this item, so we'll just move on to council and liaison reports with item 33, report on RSVP Plus. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If everybody just wants to read that over, I don't have anything to add to the comments that I made in written form. So, but if anybody's got any questions on it, I'll do my best to answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
I yield.
Thank you. Go ahead, Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. Richie, where is the funding coming from for the RSVP group now? Is it through the city or is it through another funding source?
Thanks for the question. It is mostly out of the Commission for National and Community Service, CNCS is the group. And again, I like acronyms, so it makes it life a little easier. It's a federal grant that we get. About 10% of that is used for the administrative part of it, so the city has no or very little responsibility to this group. If you recall, a few years back, it wasn't that long ago, the RSVP was on the verge of being discontinued. And with the revitalization, with a lot of people that got involved, including the mayor, helping out on this, and we were able to sustain and re-energize the RSVP program. In fact, they've grown quite a bit now and taking on responsibility of spearfish as well in that area. Now we're at the stage of that because of the mobility, the RSVP group had to get a vehicle, and that was primarily donated to the RSV program. So about the only issue that's remaining is space, and that's being worked on right now. So in fact, hopefully in a couple of months, we'll have some positive news on that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Then we'll move on the agenda to public hearing items 34 through 36. There are no speaker requests on these items, so we'll go to consent public hearing items 34 through 36. Will there be a motion from the council? Motion approved by Lehman and a second by Jones. All in favor of approval of consent, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And item 37 is the bill list, and we will go to the City Finance Director, Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $8,709,984.61.
Motion to approve by Solomon, second by Jones. All in favor of approval of the bill list, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion to adjourn by Nordstrom and Lehman, first and second. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you. We're adjourned, everyone.